Good afternoon everyone, my name is Brad. In this short video, I'm going to present my scenario for the Stop Disaster game for Intro to Urban and Regional Planning. Part of the brief was to research about physical geography and the impacts that a natural disaster can have on a community in many of the natural disaster formats, and how good planning can be to save lives. The two game scenarios that I chose were the Tsunami and Bushfire formats. The first game that I played was a Tsunami play disaster. Set in a typical fishing village in Southeast Asia, the coastal town had a lot of low-lying timber houses and bungalows, open fields with minimal vegetation, small sections of coastal reefs, rocks and mangroves along the waterfront. The mission introduction specified that you needed to cater suitable housing for a population of up to 500 community members and also tourists, with a maximum budget of $35,000 and a maximum casualty count of no more than 100 people. Damages to structures of no greater than $6,000. Building requirements of having 2 schools, 2 hospitals and enough housing for the population. So this is during the scenario screen. The town itself had no existing emergency warning system and poor education about tsunamis, which further adds to the risk of the destruction of a potential tsunami might have on a village such as this one. Building upgrades to the existing buildings in high ground locations were made between reinforcing existing footings and raising each home onto flood-rated stilts. All new buildings were built on high ground as possible. However, the hotels were strategically placed as close to the shoreline as safe to do so to help increase tourism and also boost the local economy. High-risk areas were cleared of all high-density accommodation. Mangroves, sand dunes, breakwater barriers and trees were built or planted in order to help dissipate the force of the pending tsunami and powerful sea surge. This is a post-tsunami impact screenshot. As you can see, there are large areas of damage in the low elevation, which were the high to moderate risk areas. Along the coastline, the majority of the mangroves, palm trees, sand dunes and beaches were all destroyed. However, they took the main energy out of the tsunami, helping keep the cost of damages to a relatively low $5,850. Unfortunately, as a result with most natural disasters, there's always a risk of casualties. From this scenario, there were 48 people injured and 49 casualties lost to the 15-meter recorded tsunami. However, overall the mission was successful. Although it was successful, I attempted this one particular scenario a couple of times until I recorded a respectable score. It became evident that with all good planning principles and understanding the terrain, the people and overall demographics of an area prior to building a safe and sustainable community, many lives can be saved by smart and effective planning. The second scenario that I worked on was a wildfire, or in Australia known as a bushfire disaster. Set in remote outback Australia, the drought-affected town had numerous dry-grassed areas, thick vegetation full of drought-stricken trees, mining buildings, water towers or tanks, and a town hall. The mission introduction specified that you needed to cater suitable housing for a population of 570 community members and tourists. A maximum budget of $36,000, a maximum casualty count of no more than 100 people, damages to structures of no greater than $6,000, and the building requirements of 2 schools, 2 hospitals, and enough housing for the population. The town itself had no early warning system in place, or bushfire awareness education, and there were no existing fire protection or preventive measures, to my understanding. In order to help plan a bushfire safe environment for this community, I made building upgrades, which include metal roofs, roof sprinklers, ladders and hose apparatus, metal window and door shutters, and cleared the property of any fuel sources. Once I built all required housing, schools and hospitals, I went through and created fire breaks around all the properties and in strategic locations to prevent further spread of fire. I planted fire-resistant trees and vegetation and removed all dead or some very dry vegetation in high-risk tree areas immediately surrounding property buildings. All the water source towers, or the tanks, and mines were also protected by upgrades and vegetation clearing. Isolated homes in thick vegetation were also upgraded with sprinkler systems and metal roofs in conjunction with a land clearing for fire breaks around these properties. This is a post-bushfire impact screenshot. As you can see, there are large areas of damage in the southern region that was high to moderate risk areas. Along the community buildings, the fire breaks and fire resistant trees were very effective in keeping the costs of damages to nil. Thankfully, in this instance, I recorded a nil casualty count or any major injuries. This is definitely a huge improvement to my tsunami scenario. This scenario came much more naturally to me as I grew up in a bushfire prone area in the southern tablelands in New South Wales. I gave this one 2 attempts to get it right. Although I missed out on all the key facts found, I'm pretty sure that I'm happy with all the members of the community with a nil casualty record or injuries for all property damage. So thanks for watching and good luck with yours. Cheers.